The monster ghost. Horrible lurking in the shadows.
Leave us.
Welcome back to this very special episode of the podcast. It's been 5 years since we started recording, so we are going to be covering the granddaddy, or debatably the granddaddy of all slasher movies, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho from 1960. So are we excited to be covering such a big one? Erik?
Yes.
Oh. Woo! Nathan, yes. Erik, Joseph.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay. Well, we're taking a break from listener picks. The people have been kind enough to put money towards helping making Gory Graduation. And so, as I said, we decided to do something a little bit different, a little bit special for the 5th anniversary. Can you believe that we've got to 5 years?
I know, 5 years and 2 episodes. It's great.
Did you guys think that you'd make it this far when you first started?
No. And we're back. Yeah, apologies for that. That's a good start, isn't it? The 5th anniversary technical fuck-ups.
Yeah, 5 years later and Skype is still a bag of floppage.
Exactly.
If ever there were an excuse for you guys to fund us getting together to record in the same room, this is it.
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to buy me a new MacBook Pro, then, wire the money to me. That would be very much appreciated.
Or just send it to me and I'll put a note that says, please send to Justin.
Indeed. Actually, we'll be talking probably off air about a few more commentaries we might be doing quite soon, won't we?
Possibly.
Oh yes,
yeah.
Forgot all about that.
So something to look forward to. Talking of commentaries, last weekend I did an introduction to a proto slasher that will be coming out on 88 Films. I'm not sure if it's been announced yet, so I can't say what it is. But we're looking to do a lot more, and I've seen quite a few. Our commentary for Nail Gun Massacre for 88 Films continues to astound and entertain from the sound of it.
The
Seagulling especially seems to be a standout.
The commentaries we've got coming up for Vinegar Syndrome, we can't really discuss those right now, but some of them look to be quite entertaining.
Exactly. Yes, it should be interesting. But I don't know where we got up to with introductions, but as it's probably going to be a long one because we've got coming up. It's not just Psycho, but we're actually going to be back for a special top 3 for the 5th anniversary, and this one is films we flip-flopped on, isn't it, for want of a better term? Films we either hated and now we love, or films we loved and we now hate, or somewhere in between. So we're going to be coming on to that a little bit later, but before we do, in time-honoured tradition, we'll talk about what we've been watching recently. So, Nathan, would you like to go first?
I would like to go first. I watched, after Erik talked about it in the last show, I watched Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension.
And?
I enjoyed it. I did. I thought, to me, if I was going to recommend it to anybody, because one of my Facebook friends asked me how it was, and I said, if you like the other sequels, then you'll probably like it. If you don't like the sequels, you're probably not going to like it. Because really, it is more of the same. The one thing that I liked about it was, the certain camera, the camera they find, you can see the shape that Toby, is and all this, and he's like, it looks to me, I don't know, it kind of looks like an oil slick in the shape of a person. But what I loved about the Paranormal Activity movies is they're really good with jump scares, and I think that's fun. So, I hear a car.
Have you ever seen an oil slick, Nathan?
I don't remember the next line to that in Creepshow 2, but I know what you're doing.
I love that scene, that episode of Creepshow 2.
Poncho.
Yeah.
Anyway, are you guys still there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Oh,
It went dead silent there.
It did. It just everything dropped.
This is going to be a great episode already. Yeah. I can tell.
But I agree with Erik. I pretty much echo his opinion. I enjoyed it for what it was. I'd recommend it.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'm still waiting for it to come out on in the UK. It seems to be out in Ireland already, doesn't it?
La 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 la. Yeah, let's move on. What else have you seen, Nathan?
What? No. Eric.
I don't have much else recently seen. The only other thing is I rewatched The Visit and The Final Girls, and I felt they both held up really well to a second viewing.
I've watched The Final Girls now. I watched it again with some friends on Thursday night, and yeah, it does hold up, doesn't it? It's a really fun little movie.
Yeah.
So,
But that's it.
Okay, right. Well, thank you, Nathan. Joseph, how about you?
Yeah, I had a blind Netflix watch, not literally, but it was a movie I'd never heard of, didn't really know anything about. It's called Curve. Basically, it's about this girl who's driving to across country to Denver, I believe it is, and her car breaks down, and this hitchhiker, comes along and fixes her car, and he's a nice guy, and so she's like, well, thanks for fixing my car, and she drives off, but she kind of feels guilty not giving him a ride since he's been so nice and everything. So she kind of reluctantly, offers to take him to the next town. I hear some quacking. Hold on, what is that? Sorry.
Is it
that was my
Kilo
email.
from New York Ripper?
Yeah. It was I have that sound for when I get a new email. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, so she offers to give him a ride to the next town, and then he basically, turns on a dime and reveals himself to be this, psycho. And what really happens is basically she, in an attempt to escape him, she ends up crashing the car, and then the rest of the movie is basically her trapped in the car after it's crashed and him tormenting her. It's pretty standard cliches abound in like a confined space, but some, very good lead performances. There's really only a couple of people in the film. It goes pretty much where you think it will. It doesn't really do anything new, but there's some really good moments of suspense. For a movie I didn't know anything about, and I just like, you know what, this sounds all right, I'll watch it. I rather quite enjoyed it. It's a fairly good little yarn. I'd recommend it.
Okay. What's the name of it again?
It's called Curve.
Curve. Okay. That's
Remember
what
that
to look
band
out for.
Curve? They're probably something you were into, Justin. In
Yeah,
the 80s.
I like Curve.
I used to like them, yes. Yeah, they covered Susie. I know that.
Did they?
Overground.
Oh.
Don't think they covered Toya.
Toya's songs are quite sophisticated and very difficult to cover. The arrangements are quite, advanced.
Okay.
What?
yes,
Why are you
let's move on.
laughing?
Well, we've heard Toya songs, Eric.
Yeah.
A chimp
they're
on
quite
a
complex.
Bontempi could play most of them. But, and clearly has.
Shut up.
Joseph, anything else?
The only other thing I watched was the Riff Tracks version of a movie called Icebreaker. It's basically Die Hard on a mountain, but Bruce Campbell's the bad guy. And I would recommend this movie even without the jokey riff tracks, because this movie's just so awful. And everybody, like Sean Astin's in it, and Stacy Keach and Bruce Campbell, and everybody's just so bland and bad. And you're like, they took this movie for the paycheck. But horror wise, that's Curve is about the only thing I've watched this week. So that's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Joseph. Eric, how about you?
Okay, well, I've been watching lots of Psycho-related sequels, spin-offs, etc. So the only other thing I've really watched this week is the US remake of Martyrs, which has just come out. This is the remake of the 2008 French movie, which was part of that new wave of French extreme horror from the noughties. Films like Inside and Frontiers. Good movies, not really my cup of tea. Not ones that I'd watch once but never revisit, except for maybe Martyrs, the original, which I really did enjoy because I thought it had a very intriguing. I know you hate it, but I thought it had a really intriguing storyline to sort of back up the grim violence of the film.
I agree.
Yeah. So it's a story of two friends who meet as children in an orphanage. They've grown up now, and one of them sets out on a revenge mission against some anonymous people who tortured her when she was young. And sort of that's the setup of the film. And then it goes off in various different directions, certainly unexpected when you're watching it for the first time. The remake, obviously, as an English language remake, it tones down the violence that was so controversial in the original. But it also kind of waters down the whole story. They introduce a sort of child as a main character, and it has a more optimistic tone, which is not a bad thing. It makes the film kind of bland, though. It has no edge to it. It has no bite. Has none of the impact or intrigue of the original. It feels kind of rushed, to be honest. It looks like it was thrown together. It's well made, but it looks like it was thrown together without any thought. And it hits more or less the same notes as the original film. So I'm not quite sure where it goes wrong, but it has a missing sort of je ne sais quoi. So I wouldn't recommend it. I found it kind of soulless. I would avoid it.
Okay, you can count me as a kind of fan of the original, but yeah, I haven't heard anything good about the Martyrs remake. It just doesn't seem any point to it. Why?
No.
I mean, I know there probably is an American audience who just wouldn't watch a French film or a French language film, and so for commercial reasons. But then Martyrs wasn't exactly a commercial film.
No, it's certainly a very uncommercial concept from the start. So,
do they keep the religious angle in the remake?
Yes, okay. But it's not. It's not as intriguing. I don't know. It just seems. It's hard. It's hard to explain why the film doesn't work. And it's not because it's toned down. It's not because the violence is toned down. That's not a problem. It's just the whole thing feels a bit straight to video and dull.
Okay. All right. Well, it's probably not one I'm going to catch up with unless it happens to be playing on the plane or something, which is very unlikely anyway. Isn't it,
Yeah.
So,
our in-flat movie today, Martyrs.
It's Martyrs.
Anything else?
Followed by the Bunny Game, or whatever that one's called. As I said, I've been watching lots of Psycho-related stuff that we'll talk about later in the podcast.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you, Erik. There's a few that I've seen. I think we've discussed this one before, but I just caught it on Netflix, or Amazon, one or the other. We Are Still Here with Barbara Crampton.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. Joseph and Nathan, have you seen it yet?
Yeah, it's directed by the guy I used to run the Diabolical Dominion with, Ted Gagan.
Right.
He's a good guy. I like the movie. I felt it kind of meandered a little bit in the middle, but the gore effects and the makeup on the I guess you call it the threat was just really outstanding. And I guess the last 15 to 20 minutes, it really goes off the rails, and I like that. It's just go for broke. I just kind of found the middle portion to be it's kind of that Fulci-esque kind of mood setting, but I don't know. It just didn't really do much for me, I guess.
What about you, Nathan? Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it.
I liked it. I liked it enough. It doesn't work completely. I didn't think it didn't engage completely, but there's some really, really good stuff in there. The central threat is realised really well. And I didn't realise for about half an hour into the movie that it was actually a period piece. It was set in 1979. I also didn't realise until I started watching it that it was a tribute to Lucio Fulci, which isn't become clear really until the second half or towards the end when the gore really kicks in. But yeah, it was entertaining enough. There's some good scares and some good creepy bits, but some of the acting was a little bit off, and just the pacing was a bit off. It was a good failure, if that makes sense. Well, not a failure, but didn't quite work.
Yeah, I think my main problem is that I guess it tries to do too much with I guess what I'd call just kind of a threadbare story. It has a lot of unanswered questions, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I don't know. It tries to introduce so much, and you kind of want it to answer at least a little something. I guess they try to do that over the end credits a little bit with all the flashy stuff. I don't know. I just found the middle portion to be kind of I guess wanting.
It'd be interesting to see what he does next, because I say it's definitely worth a watch. It kind of reminded me a bit of what's the guy's name? The one who did House of the Devil.
Ty West.
Yeah. It's kind of a little bit sort of Ty West-esque, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
Ted's been making movies since the 90s. He did a couple of the Andreas Schnoss films, like the Demonium and one of the like Barricade, one of the violent shit type films from Germany. He got contracted to do a lot of that stuff, but I think this is his first major release.
Okay, cool. Okay. Well, that was that. The other film I saw was a new British horror film that got released last year, werewolf movie called Howl, which is set on a commuter train. What?
Oh, sorry. I saw a preview for that last night, and I can't wait to see it.
Well, I don't want to rain on your parade. It's good, but it's an interesting failure for me anyway. It sets itself up a bit like Dog Soldiers, the werewolf one, the soldiers versus the werewolves, and it stars Sean Pertwee and has like an inside joke about sausages in there. So it has him in the film briefly. It's more of a cameo really than the main major role. It also has Shauna MacDonald, who was in the Descent films. It kind of works. What's wrong with it for me was it's tonally all over the place. At one point it wants to be a bit of a comedy. The next it's deadly serious. Then it's going in quite. It kind of makes some the opposite of crowd-pleasing decisions with some of the characters. So it's a bit tonally, it's a little bit over the place. It's the idea is great. You've got a group of commuters on a late-night train that's derailed in the middle of a forest, and they're being picked off one by werewolves who are kind of circling the train and breaking in. So you have all of that good stuff going on, but to me, it's definitely worth a watch. It's fun enough, but tonally, it goes from being funny, like Howling-esque, the original Howling kind of funny, American Werewolf in London type of kind of funny, to somewhere much darker, and you don't quite know where it's going, which can be a good thing, but in this case, I found it a little bit off-putting. But be interested to hear what you think, Nathan, when you get a chance to watch that.
Oh, awesome! I can't wait to see it. I love the trailer.
Yeah,
I've never heard of it. It sounds really good. I'll have to give it a go.
Yeah, the werewolf effects are great, although they look quite weird. They're not but yeah.
Yeah, you can see when you watch the trailer, you can see the wolves, and I was thinking at the time, I'm like, I didn't know were these werewolves, because they don't look like your typical werewolves.
No.
They almost look more on the human side of the werewolf than the wolf side to me.
Yeah, it doesn't really explain and also they're still werewolves during the day as well. So it's kind of playing fast and loose with some of the kind of folklore on that. But yeah, it's worth a watch and see what you think. But I think it's on. Have you got Netflix, Erik?
I do, yes.
I think it's on Netflix. No, actually, no. I think we got it through Love Film actually. But I'm sure that you'll find a way to watch it, Erik.
What's that mean? Well, I bought Psycho on Blu-ray for this podcast.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you did, Erik. Well done.
I did.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you did. Yeah.
Shut up! I did.
Inverted commas. Yes, I'm sure you did.
No,
well
I did.
Erik will take a photo
crying.
and put it online with. But anyway, I'm sure he did. I bought a Blu-ray of Psycho as well for £6 second hand.
Oh, I got £6 new.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay,
So,
right. And the last thing I watched was I bought it ages ago, but I hadn't watched it. Was the Living Dead at Manchester Morgue Blue Underground Blu-ray, which
Love it.
Watched on the big screen on the kitchen wall, and it looks fantastic. And it's a great film, isn't it? I love it.
Well, it's got your fella in it, Ray Lovelock.
Yes, lovely Ray Lovelock's in it, and I love the. It's got everything. It's great in all. Loads of good gore, and it's and the bizarre switching between the English countryside and what's clearly Spain. The scenes with the.
Yeah, it doesn't get anywhere
sister.
near Manchester, does it? It's actually the Lake District, I think, of the UK, is it?
Yeah, it starts off in Manchester, doesn't it? Where it's got that strange opening of the woman running naked through Manchester streets. But all the scenes with the main woman's sister and her husband are clearly in Spain. They're nowhere. That's certainly not Manchester. If it's Manchester, it's certainly a very different type of Northern England than we're used to seeing. But there's loads of stuff actually filmed in the Lake District as well, so that makes it even more jarring that you've got those kind of very specific kind of those kind of trees that grow in Spain and Italy, which you never see in England. But anyway, that was great. So I saw it, and if you haven't seen that film, then it's one of the best zombie films of the 1970s. So do check it out.
There's one movie I forgot I was going to mention. It's I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but it's called Attack of the 5'9" Giggle Monster. It's about a guy who gets tickled and bullied.
Shut up. Little whores.
When did that come out?
It was I procured it about 2 days ago
On the black market. Do you have a clip from it?
No, I'll have to do that at a later date.
Okay, right. So, are we? Do we want to talk about it, Erik, or not?
No, we don't want to talk about it. Okay.
Okay. All right. We won't talk about it. Well, let's move on to, and we're back with a top 3. So this is top 3 flip-flops, kind of, isn't it?
Flip-flops.
Well, you know what I mean. Top 3 films we flip-flopped on. So
Do you guys wear flip-flops?
Sometimes
Yes.
on holiday. Yeah.
I
You
don't.
do?
Yeah.
I thought
don't you?
I do.
Flip-flops are for girls.
What do you mean?
No, they're
for
not.
girls?
They are.
No, that was in the olden days. We're in modern times now.
Yeah, we're metrosexual, Erik.
Exactly.
Like Norman Bates.
Justin and I are the metrosexuals of the podcast.
Yes.
I've even had my eyebrows done.
Well, considering
Have you?
considering one of the
No.
songs that you almost picked for the end of the show, Nathan, I was going to say you're definitely the gayest of the podcast.
Well, I happen to love that song. Sue
What, it's
me.
Raining Men.
Yeah, is it Raining Men?
No, I don't remember
Weather
the name
Girls.
of the song, but
Village People.
it was definitely a
Is it Over the
definitely
Rainbow by Judy Garland?
it was definitely a Moe song. I'll just
It's
say
not
Moe.
that gay.
Something from a musical.
Well, we've got it's what we've got at the end of the show is we've got a special treat for you, which is, well, I don't know if it will be a treat. That'll be subjective, but 4 songs to play out, but each one chosen by your dear presenters here. So, but anyway, before we get onto that and before we get onto Psycho, let's do our top 3. So, should we start? Let's start with Erik this time.
Mm-hmm.
What is the third? Is it
Okay.
in any particular order? Are we doing the biggest?
Mine aren't really in a particular order.
Okay,
But,
okay.
My number 3 is my controversial pick because I don't consider it's first of all, it's 2 movies from the same franchise. They're not slasher movies, but they are sequels to a film we have covered. So we covered Alien last year, the year before. So I'm choosing Alien 3 and its sequel, Alien Resurrection, for different reasons. First of all, Alien 3 I thought was a bit of a turkey. Well, not a bit of a turkey when I saw it first. I was really disappointed and thought it was kind of an incoherent mess. Seeing it again on VHS, I warmed to it a bit more. Seeing it in its director's cut, I warmed to it even more. And I think it's actually superior now to Aliens, the second movie, and I love it. So I completely did a 180 on that film. And more or less the same with Alien Resurrection, except in reverse. I went to see that in the cinema when it came out, thought it was the bee's knees, and then bought the DVD when it came out. And yeah, I did buy the DVD, Justin. I did. And I
Unless
discovered
there's photos,
that...
it didn't happen.
Sorry?
Unless there's photos, it didn't happen.
How do you manage to see a lot of these movies? How are you going to manage to see the amazing double bill of pain that Nathan has lined up coming up shortly?
What, Blood Hook?
What are you talking about? Double pain.
I have
It is.
Blood. I've got
Eric's
Blood
going
Hook.
to go on a absence of proof isn't proof of absence tirade
Yeah.
here shortly.
Just wait till we can actually pick our own again, because I have a wonderful Death Nurse 1 and 2 double feature lined up.
Haven't we already done those? It feels
No,
like
we
have.
did Criminally Insane and Crazy Fat Ethel. These are 2
Yeah.
different movies with the same cast.
So we have done them.
Yeah, we've done them. Let's move on.
No.
Yes, anyway, Alien Resurrection I thought was great when I saw it in the cinema. Now I think it's diabolically awful. It's got an awful hybrid alien effect at the end. It's got a thread of humor running through it that's completely at odds with the rest of the series and doesn't work. Sigourney Weaver's playing a complete oddball, I suppose, because she's a clone. I'm sure he has to, but you just can't warm to her character. Don't get me started on Winona Ryder as an android. Just the whole thing is a mess. There's 1 or 2 good scenes in it, but it's Alien vs. Predator 2. Alien vs. Predator Requiem is better than Alien Resurrection. There you go.
Okay.
I would agree with you about Alien 3. I think it's very, very underrated.
It does take a lot to warm to it, but
Yeah. When I saw it, I was like, this is terrible. But now I think it's, I like it better than Aliens.
Yeah. Have you seen the director's? Well, it's called a director's cut. It's not really a director's cut, but the extended version. It's about 2.5 hours.
Yes, and I actually don't mind the running time either. I think
neither do
it
I.
works in its favor. Yeah.
It does completely, because it's one of the things with the theatrical cut is it's very hard to tell who's who at a certain stage because everyone's bald and has the same clothes. So it's kind of like a night at a bear bar.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, but some of those flaws are ironed out in the extended versions.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's too controversial, Eric.
Well, no, the controversy
Oh.
was that they're not slasher movies.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Well, thank you. Is there anything else to say, Nathan? Anything else to say on that, or you?
Probably hasn't seen.
I haven't seen either of those.
Have you not? Oh, because you don't like sci-fi.
But
You
yeah, I'm
haven't
not
seen Aliens. You haven't even seen Aliens, have you?
No, actually, I have seen Aliens.
All right.
But it's because Grant picked it on a movie night.
Okay.
So that's how I've seen it.
All right. Well, thank you, Eric. Joseph, do you want to go next with your number 3?
Yeah, my number 3 is Slaughter High. When I used to hate that film, but I've really warmed to it, especially since we picked it last. I know the characters are just obnoxious and just despicable human beings all around, but I don't know. I love the school setting. I think it's really well shot, and it's got a lot of great death scenes. I'm not particular. I mean, I think the reason why I didn't like it to begin with, and passing car, is probably just because of the characters. But now I just kind of brush that aside and just watch it for its kind of, its setting and its atmosphere, and a lot of the death scenes. I think the pacing is actually really well done as well. So yeah, it's a definite turnaround from me. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but it's one I could actually watch, on a semi-regular basis now.
Okay. Cool. I've grown to appreciate Slaughter High since I did the commentary for it. But when I originally saw it, I thought it was a bit too silly. But I think again with those kind of cinematic cheese, they do kind of tend to improve with age, don't they?
Definitely, because I only saw Slaughter High in the last few years, probably maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I can imagine if I saw this back in the day, I would have hated it because it was exactly the kind of thing I didn't like.
Wow, 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 wow,
Well, that's one of my favorite things about it is that music. Carolyn Monroe as a 16-year-old is brilliant as well.
Oh God.
There's just you need to go into it expecting a sort of Pieces or Bloody Moon type movie, and I think you'll get a kick out of it.
Okay, cool. Right. Nathan, your number 3, please.
Well, and as you guys know, I put a lot of thought into this.
You've been working on it all week, haven't you?
I know. It's been so painstaking. But my first pick is House of Death. And when I watched it as a kid, I just hated the stretch where it takes them that long to get to the house and the massacre happens. So as a kid, I just thought, I just don't really like that one. So I didn't watch it for a long time. And I think when I did finally rewatch it, it was when I was roommates with Joseph. And I don't know. I mean, watching it later on, I just grew a huge appreciation for it. And now, I love every minute of that movie, even the parts people complain about, like the carnival scenes. I love those too. And it'll always bring a laugh out of me thinking about Joseph talking about the grandma in that movie when she's being a man hater. And at one point when we were watching it and Joseph says, he goes, I would just take her wheelchair and push her into the ocean.
No, I said push her into oncoming traffic.
Oh, okay. It was
Either way. Yeah.
But no, I mean, I absolutely love the film today.
Excellent. Okay. Well, there's another one kind of grown appreciation for, which did we ever get into the bottom of if that's ever going to get a decent release?
Yeah. I spoke with obviously Ryan from Vinegar Syndrome and got him in contact with Worth Keeter, who owns the rights to House of Death, and apparently he has a negative of it somewhere in one of his vaults. Last I heard, they were trying to work out something about it. That's pretty much all I know. I really hope it happens because, that's like a dream release for me. Yeah, originally that was my number 1 pick, but I've changed that. I'm exactly in the same boat. I rented this from a little shop called KC Video because I like the basically just the hand holding the machete in the window. I was like, ooh. And, I watched it, I was like, this is trash. But it's one of those movies, the more I watched it, the more I loved it. Even the carnival scenes, all the stuff at the graveyard, I love it all. It's one of those movies that's kind of like, I guess it's mysterious because it's obviously missing some moments that would probably make the story a little more coherent. So it's one of those movies you just, you want to learn more about, I guess, for lack of a better description.
Cool. Okay. Excellent. Right. Well, thank you. So you've got a different number one, haven't you?
Yes, I do.
Yes. Okay. Well, the cat will be coming up shortly, but before it does, my number 3 is well, again, it's not actually a slasher movie, and it was although you could say it was has the this is the eternal argument about whether this film is a giallo or a supernatural giallo or a hybrid. I would say it's more of a hybrid of giallo and Italian supernatural films. And I think I've mentioned this before, but when I first saw Suspiria when I was about 15, I thought it was appalling. I hated it, and I thought it was really, really shit. And I was 15, and I just wanted some kind of gory horror film. And I think I probably saw a cut version of it. I'm sure it was heavily cut, but I came to be one of my most loved horror films. So it just goes to show that you can't trust the tastes of 15-year-olds, I think.
Did you see it in the theater?
No, I never saw it. I'm trying to think. Did I see Suspiria in the theatre? I don't. Well, no, not back at the time. I'm not that old. I was 7 when it came
sorry.
out, so.
I did not mean to imply that.
Well, I think it was a fair assumption to make.
Yeah, it's like I saw that movie with the train coming at the audience. We all screamed.
Yeah. Were you at that?
Yeah, I was at the premiere of that. How very dare you, Nathan? No, I saw it on video. You know, one of those VCRs back in the day. But I probably saw it in about I don't know, about 1980, 85 or something, 84, 85, on video, and just thought it was really boring, really stupid, really badly dubbed, everything. And all the things.
Did you know about its reputation at that stage?
I think so. I think it had a reputation at that point, and we knew of its reputation. Funnily enough, another film that we watched around the same time was another film. Well, one film that was more infamous, I kind of guess, which was the Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, which I think was released as The Living Dead on video and was banned, or was certainly. And when it was re-released, it was cut of all gore. Absolutely all gore. So just again, it's in 1985, watching a film that was 10 years old, everything with people wearing flares, badly dubbed and incredibly cut. He just didn't really do it for like a gorehound 15-year-old. So, but those are two films obviously I've come to appreciate a lot more. So that's my number 3.
I think I probably had. Well, I didn't have this. I wouldn't say I hated Suspiria when I saw it first, but I was completely underwhelmed by it. Much for the same reason. I saw it when I was about 15, and I knew going into it, this is, got this reputation of being a major classic. And then I was watching it going, I hadn't seen that much Euro horror at that stage. My exposure to horror was mainly American, cinema release stuff, mainstream stuff. So it was a shock to the system, but I do love it now. I still think Deep Red is his masterpiece, though. But
Have you picked up the Arrow release?
No, you see, I have the old Arrow Blu-ray, and I know they've got a new 4K restoration one out, and I don't know if I can be bothered buying another version.
I'm sure you'll find a way to get a copy.
Well, actually, if you were HMV, have got it for $14.99 at the moment, which is a real steal.
Really?
Yeah. So it might be worth having a look. I got it off Savvy for about $17.99, but actually in shops, do you have HMV?
We do, yes.
Okay. So how does that work? Do you get releases like that in shops in Dublin? I don't know if you ever check real releases.
Some Arrow ones, yeah. It's usually a better selection when I go to the UK. But... What?
I was laughing at Justin because he's like, I'm not sure you even really check for new releases.
I do sometimes go to shop. Well, I do. My Blu-ray collection is quite extensive. Very
photos,
extensive.
but no.
I will send you photos.
Okay.
Erik.
Where are we up to? Okay, well, I'll tell you where we are up to, and it's this. Erik.
I miss that cat.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all have. Erik, what's your...
And Psycho was the first movie to have a flushing toilet, and we're the first podcast to have a cat flushing a toilet on it.
That is, yes, that's very profound, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, very unprofound is my number 2 choice, which is Freddy versus Jason. I saw this twice when it came out in the cinemas in 2003, and I loved it. And again, I bought it on DVD because I did not have the internet at home at the time to pirate it, Justin. So I bought it. It was on a 2 discs special edition.
Is that to suggest you would have pirated it if you
No, I
did
wouldn't
have internet
have.
like you have now?
No.
Okay.
Freddy versus Jason, yeah, it was a big disappointment when I finally saw it on DVD then. I was like, what was I thinking? Not that it's awful, but I just find there are bits of it that are just really annoying. One of them being Kelly Rowland from Destiny's Child, who is really annoying in the film, and she can't act. Freddy is in his sort of Freddy's Dead type mode, which is a bit stretching too much into comedy. Jason, I don't like the new Jason at all in it. He's tall and lanky. He's kind of like Justin Kurzweil in a mask. Yeah, Justin, I went there. Yeah, and there's just too much goofy humor in it. And yeah, it wasn't... It was one thing seeing it in the cinema and then a completely different experience watching it at home on DVD. A real DVD.
I think the fact that it was just this big event is the reason why I liked it.
Yeah.
But, watching it, I saw it again about 2 or 3 years ago, and it just felt like a silly kind of a WWF wrestling match type, appealing to that crowd rather than the actual slasher movie fan crowd.
Yeah.
Do you remember my theater experience when we went and watched it, Joseph?
Well, there's two different ones. The first one was bad on you, and the second was bad on me.
I know, we have bad luck watching that movie at the theater. The first experience was this kid sat down next to me, and during the movie, he spilled his soda in my lap.
Oh, dear. Deliberately?
No, it was an accident, and he kept apologizing, and I was annoyed about the soda, but I was also like, okay, it's fine. Like, let's just finish the movie. Because it was an accident.
The second one has international incident written all over it, and I'm not going to go into that, so...
Oh.
Oh.
Well,
that can be an off the record.
Yeah, that'll have to be an off the record thing because I don't want to alienate anyone.
Oh. Oh. Okay.
Are you going to be racist?
Oh.
I didn't. Okay, look, I'll go ahead and tell the story. I didn't mean to. It was just a heat of the moment thing. But basically, I was very insensitive toward these 3 girls who were giggling and laughing and pointing, and they kept turning around making remarks towards my hair through the movie while we were trying to watch it. So I made a remark about their hair, just to tell them to be quiet. And I feel bad about it, but it happened.
And I thought we were going to get murdered in the parking lot because I was like, it was not, the theater is not in the best part of town. So.
Was it Hair Wars?
Yeah. A New Hope.
A New Hope, yes. Okay, well, see, this is what happens when you dredge up the top 3s again.
Yeah.
It comes tumbling out of the closet. So.
Is that Grudge Lady I just heard?
Sounds like the
Sound like the lady from The Grudge. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, that's my big number 2.
I agree with...
That was the sound of Erik opening his wallet to buy Blu-rays.
Do you even go to the theater to watch movies, Erik?
I haven't been to the cinema for 6 months now. The last film I saw, I think, was Mad Max, which Justin went to see with sunglasses on. Remember that?
I do, but it wasn't
He
my
went to see it and he had
fault.
sunglasses on. He thought they were 3D glasses.
No.
Doofus.
Stuart brought them along.
Yeah.
And I was sat there in them. But how was I supposed to know? Anyway, let's move it swiftly along. Joseph, here's a little cat for you.
Yay. I love that cat. Anyway, my number 2 is probably controversial to at least Justin. It's very quiet. Are you still there?
We are still here.
Yes.
Wow, it's really
Just
weird.
like the movie.
It's just really weird. It's dead silence. Anyway, my number 2 is Happy Birthday to Me. It's a film I watched on, I believe it was HBO or Showtime back in 91 or so for the first time. I don't really remember, but I liked it a lot. But the more I watch it, the more I dislike it. For one, it goes on way too long. It does a lot of these moments to just throw you off track, just for the fact of throwing you off track. There's really no character development to it, like the bell tower scene. I just think it's completely, unnecessary. I get the gag in these in these types of films is to throw people off and present a lot of red herrings, but I've never seen a movie that's like right at 2 hours use so many red herrings. I just think it kind of goes on, and I just kind of want it to get to the point. I don't hate the film, but it's just one that's just the more I watch it, the more I dislike it. So I try not to watch it that much because I don't want to get to that point where I hate the film. So yeah, that's my number 2.
Okay, well, controversial, as you will know, I will not have anything said against Happy Birthday to Me. Because I still adore it, and I think for all its faults, which there are none, it's still a wonderful film.
I'm on Justin's side on this one.
It'd be interesting to see where Erik comes down.
I think he went to go download it to see.
Hey, I have that on Blu-ray as well and on a DVD. I've done 2 formats.
When that download's done and you watch it, let me know where you land.
Well, to let you know what I think about it now, I loved it too as well, but I think I'm a bit over-familiar with it now, so its impact is dulled, but I still think it's a good movie. So there.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, thank you. Interesting. It'd be interesting to see what our number 1s are. But before we get to that, Nathan, here's a little cat for you.
Thank you, Kat. For my number 2, I'm going to go with Halloween Part 4. But I don't hate Halloween Part 4. Like
I do.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
but
I don't like it either.
To me, it's so underwhelming. It's just so meh. It's, watching it today, I found myself playing on my phone, reading trivia about the other movies in the Halloween series on the IMDb while it was playing, just because I don't know, I just don't find a whole lot of things interesting in it. I find Part 5 to be much more entertaining. But Part 4, like, the best thing probably about Part 4 was Kathleen Kinmont as kind of the slutty cop's daughter.
Cops do it by the book.
Yeah, and actually, I meant the slutty daughter of a cop, not the slutty cop's daughter, because that kind of sounds like the cop is slutty, and that's not the case. Yeah, it could be.
You might be doing it with everyone down the precinct.
But ultimately, I find it a very underwhelming film today. But when I was a kid, just the fact that Michael Myers was back after Part 3, which Part 3, incidentally, is another one I've done a total 180 on, because I used to hate it as a kid because I wanted Michael Myers to be slashing people up in a Halloween film. But today I love Part 3. It's probably one of my favorites in the series. And so, like, on those 2, I've kind of like flip-flopped on both of them in a completely different direction.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'm as you know, I'm probably I'm not a champion for Part 4, but I guess I'm slowly coming around to your way of thinking. The rest of you around Halloween 5, in the same way as that. I think it's as the years go on, it gets riper, just in the way as Friday 13th Part 5, a new beginning becomes riper.
Yeah.
But at the time, again, it's another example of a film that I watched at the time, and I thought Halloween 4 was a much better film than Halloween 5, because it is a better film in a lot of ways. I think it's more, it takes more care. Halloween 5's all over the place. It's not really, it kind of almost jettisons the whole Halloween feel. It takes a lot more care in Halloween 4 to recreate the Carpenter feel than Halloween 5 feels like a cheaper cash in, but it's more fun, perhaps.
Yes.
So
no, perhaps definitely it's more fun,
right.
And I would agree. I never warmed to Halloween 4, so it was never a 180 for me. But definitely with Halloween 3, because if you remember, Justin, when that came out in VHS in the 80s, it was severely truncated. Like every effect scene was cut, and so you're dealing with the fact that you have no Michael Myers, and then you have no special effects in it either. So it was just kind of a damp squib. So
did you watch that? Did you watch that when the man came round with a van?
Oh, Justin. I was just about to make the same joke.
Yeah. I saw it on VHS, rented it from the VHS shop. Then I saw it on the BBC, and it was a slightly longer version.
Okay.
And now I have it twice on Blu-ray. Twice.
Is this going to be the new Alan Dale joke?
I have
Erik
it
doesn't
twice on
buy?
Blu-ray. I bought the Scream Factory one, and then I bought the box set, which has it in it as well. So now I have 2 copies of Halloween 3.
Okay. You can send one to me if you want.
No, you don't deserve it, you little whore.
Oh, Erik. Because I don't have it on Blu-ray, I don't think. I've got it on... I got the Good Times Region 1.
Maybe he can upload you a copy.
But no, I'm not casting nasturtiums.
You are?
No, but do you remember back in the 80s when people used to... Did you have someone come around in the van with like, dodgy
I
videos?
don't think we weren't that cosmopolitan, no.
Okay. No, they used to be... Because you remember it used to be like films like E.T. and stuff like that were bootlegged.
Oh, I did. Well, I suppose I was one of 50 billion people to see E.T. in a pirate video before it was released in the cinema.
But, yes, okay, right. Well, Nathan, we've just done you, haven't we? So...
Yeah, you just did me.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. This feels good.
Oh, baby.
It's showtime.
Well, for my number 2, again, I'm sure this is a film I know it's a film we've spoken about before. It's not one we've covered yet, but it's one we've spoken about quite often. And after I saw the original, which was Nightmare on Elm Street, was my first ever X-rated or 18-rated or whatever film at the cinema, slasher movie at the cinema. It went with high expectations to go and see A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 at the cinema. And I remember sitting there thinking, what a car wreck. This is kind of like the epitome of a bad sequel that's just shut together to make money. And again, with time, the cheesy charms of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 have become very evident. And so, it's a film that I can enjoy a lot more, but I still always remember alongside Return of the Living Dead Part 2 being mortified watching it in the cinema and thinking, this is awful. Especially I'd taken along a whole load of people to see it after saying how fantastic A Nightmare on Elm Street was. So, but I haven't done a complete 180 on that.
I remember enjoying it when I saw it, but thinking it was a much lesser film. But now I think it is superb.
Yes, it's still not better than the first film, is it? But it's
no, but it's. I think it's my favorite of the sequels. I mean, I used to think Dream Warriors was excellent, but I think that's outstayed its welcome. I think I watched it too many times back in the day, so I'm kind of bored with that one. But Freddy's Revenge, I never grow tired of.
Cool. Okay. What about you guys, Nathan and Joseph? Any thoughts?
I've always loved it.
Yeah. Well, it goes without saying.
I think with Justin, I remember watching this from a video rental in 86 or so and thinking, this is terrible, but yeah, I've really warmed to it a lot over the years.
Cool. Excellent. Right. Well, that's the top 2s out of the way, so we bid farewell to that cat. But, Erik...
He's never coming back, by the way.
Well, he might be. Who knows?
Yeah,
Erik,
he'll be
what
back.
is your number 1?
Okay, well, my number 1 might surprise you, although I may have mentioned this when we covered it on the podcast, but my number 1 is Friday the 13th Part 2. Okay, I've mentioned this many times, but the sequence in which I saw the first 6 Friday the 13th was as follows. I saw 6 first, Jason Lives, then I saw 4, and then I saw 1, and then I saw 2. So I'd seen 6, which was this popcorn movie with Jason's a zombie. I saw 4, which was action-packed and had... Kristen Glover's dancing, and it was just a really well-made movie. Then I had 1, which had all the Tom Savini effects, and then I saw 2, and it has no real knockout effect sequences in it. And I think that's what the problem was for me, is that it didn't have that kick that I got from the other 3 I'd seen in the series before that. So I was a bit disappointed when I saw it. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't mad on it. And when I came to... I know what you're going to say. When I came to buy the sell-through, when I came to buy them on sell-through VHS in the late 80s, I bought 1, 3, and 4, and I didn't have 2, and I thought, okay, I'll need to get 2 just to complete the collection, and so I bought 2, and that's when my love affair with the film kind of started. But when I saw it first, I found it hugely disappointing, but not a bad film. But now it is my it's a tie between 1 and 2 as to which one's my favorite, but I love both of them equally, I'd say. So.
Yay! You made me such a happy man, Erik. Yes, I will marry you.
Oh. It's like Sleepless in Seattle or
Sleepless in
Remember.
Dublin. Sleepless in Dublin.
Well, for me, I remember seeing, because I saw the first Friday the 13th, and it was only Friday the 13th Part 2 that came out on video in the UK during the height of, well, before the Video Nasties thing, but the sequels 3 onwards didn't come out until about 1987 in the UK. So I saw Friday the 13th Part 2, and I remember loving it, because I actually think it's a more suspenseful film than Part 1.
Yeah.
It's got more chase scenes
Much
and things
better
like that.
made,
So, so I remember loving it, but I think it's a shame we'll never see a version of it coming out which is fully uncut.
Yeah.
Now, I have seen, and no one believes me, but from the alt horror days, someone did send me I believe it was a Dutch print, but it was really terrible quality. The only thing different was when Crazy Ralph gets garroted with the thing. It was a little longer. I wish I still had that just so I could upload it, but it does exist. I just don't know where it came from. I can't remember where it came from. It's just like 97 or 98. So there's got to be some gore effects out there somewhere.
I'm sure there are. They're probably buried in the Paramount, sort of the depths of Paramount's dungeon somewhere. So,
but I've always loved that film. I've never been a turnaround on that one.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you, Erik. What about you, Joseph? What's your number one?
My number one is a fairly recent movie. It's You're Next. I went to see that at the cinema with Nathan, I believe it was. He'd already seen it, and I hadn't. And I really disliked it. I just found it boring and just kind of by the numbers. It felt more like a Home Alone sequel than it did
Kevin!
a slasher film. But anyway, I watched it, at home on a big screen TV, and I really just kind of fell in love with it. I think it works. It fires on all cylinders now. I don't know why I had such a bad theater experience with it, but I really do love the film now. I love the music. I love a lot of the slow-mo shots. The final girl is just excellent. I love the just these mass killers just descending on the house. I mean, it does everything right. I mean, I don't know what I saw in the cinema that made me hate it so much, but
was it maybe a spiral perm?
It could have been. Yeah.
I think it's just a jinx. Like, we can't go to the theater together because something bad always happens.
Incidentally, but I don't really think I had a bad theater experience. I think I was just bored, or maybe I was just in a bad mood. I don't know, but I had the same experience with It Follows. I saw that, and it was I had a very bad theater experience with that. With a lot of rowdy, hipsters just making jokes and stuff that kind of ruined it for me. But that's another one I watched at home and that I just love now. But yeah, You're Next is my number one.
Cool. Okay, that sounds good. I can't remember if I saw it at that cinema. I got it on. I'm not sure if it got a release at the cinema in the UK. Can you remember, Erik?
Shut up!
Well, I'm talking about cinema now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I didn't see it in the cinema. No, I saw it on Blu-ray, but I think it did.
Okay, I don't think I saw it at the cinema, but
I think it was sort of like it was there for 1 or 2 weeks and then gone.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, Nathan, what is your number one?
For my number one, I'm going to choose Scream, the 1980s Scream. Because when I first heard the description when I was a kid about a group of people stranded at a ghost town getting picked off one by one, that just sounded amazing to me. And then I watched it and I was like, oh, this is awful. Like, I really hated it as a kid. But it was one of those situations where I rewatched it and then I was like, well, I mean, I really like what they did with the setting, but it's still not a good movie. So it took a while for me to completely make a 180, but I just kept finding things I liked about it until I'm like, you know what? I think I actually just like this movie. All right, then we'll go with it.
Yeah, same with me with the also known as The Outing.
Yeah.
I watched this the first time I watched this. I was like, "Wow, this is just complete rubbish." But the more you watch it,
have we covered?
No, we haven't covered that yet. No, it will be picked soon. I don't think soon, but it will be picked eventually. But anyway, like Nathan said, it's one of those movies you find little tidbits here and there that you pick out on subsequent viewings. It kind of almost builds to a conclusive whole. WHOLE, Erik. But yeah, I really like that
Justin
film.
was going to
too.
laugh first.
Yeah, it's not a good movie, but there's something there.
Okay. Is that the one that's called AKA paint drying?
Yes.
I'm kind of with Nathan and Joseph on this one, I have to say, because I didn't like it when I saw it first, but it's just so unique. Well, maybe along with Skullduggery, which I think I'm the only person who kind of likes Skullduggery. It has that same bizarre, supernatural, let's make it up as we go along type feel to it. I think there's plenty to enjoy in the film.
Yeah, there's definitely something unique and mysterious about it. I kind of like.
Okay. Well, I'd look forward to watching that again because I do still have.
So insincere.
Well, no, I do sometimes suffer from insomnia, so it'd be it'd be good. But I still have the VTC gold video box of that, I think, somewhere knocking about. But it got a Blu-ray or DVD release, isn't it?
Did it?
Yeah, did it, Eric?
Shag off, all of ye. Except maybe Nathan. He's the only one's not picking on me.
Oh, Erik, it is the 5th anniversary.
Whoa.
Oh,
See,
well,
that cat is objecting to your bullying tactics.
she just jumped up here out of nowhere and scared the heck out of me.
Gosh, you'd think you're in a slasher movie.
Yeah.
Pardon my French.
Halloween 2.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Anything else you want to say, Nathan, on your pick?
I just want to say that it's fantastic, and I think that if we ever do this again, it will be on Justin's list.
Well, that's probably never going to happen. But
Oh, well, geez.
but who knows? Who knows? We'll see where we flip flop. And going into my pick. This is a controversial one, and one that I'm conflicted with. But I think I've finally decided that I wouldn't say he's overrated, but I just don't actually enjoy that much Mario Bava films.
Ooh.
And it's quite controversial, really, isn't it? I mean, there's ones I
Colour me
really like.
intrigued.
Yes. Well, I love. There's certain films I love of his. I love Blood and Black Lace, which I think is fantastic.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
What?
Twitch of the Death Nerve?
No, I like that, but although I don't think it's well, I know I like that. It's very playful. What I love about Mario Bava is obviously the way things look, his kind of cheeky humour, the fact he pushes some boundaries. But I watched again relatively recently Five Dolls for an August Moon. And to be fair, Mario Bava didn't like that film either. And there are bits in it I love. I love the Edwidge Fenwick's big hair and, the 10 Little Indians stylings of it. But I just think it's quite a dull film. And considering, and I just kind of thinking back, I was thinking Hatchet for a Honeymoon is a bit dull.
I like Hatchet for a Honeymoon.
It's all right, but I just don't, he's not, I don't want to come across that I really, it's just like, the reason I picked $5 for an August Moon is I remember I got the DVD, the Region 1 DVD many years ago, and it was one of the first Jali that I ever owned on any medium, and I remember watching it and loving the stylings and everything like that. But when I watched it again recently, I just found it a bit boring, a bit dull. So, but I don't know. I'm kind of, because Mario Bava is so well respected, but I think if I'm going to pick a Dario Argento or a Sergio Martino or even a Lucio Fulci movie from that time, with a Mario Bava film, I probably would pick the other three rather than Mario Bava, perhaps, at a push. So
I kind of agree with you about $5 for an August Moon and Hatchet for the Honeymoon. I think the titles actually outshine the films because I love the titles. But the movies, I don't know.
$5 for an August Moon is not a great Giallo.
No.
But I think you shouldn't tar Mario Bava with this, sweeping generalizations like that just because he made one bad film. I like Hatchet for the Honeymoon. I love Rabid Dogs. I love Shock. I love Twisted Nerve. I love it's the one set in the olden days with the ghostly girl.
That's another one I was never able to get through.
Kill Baby Kill.
Yeah.
No, I love that movie.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just something. I'm not a big fan of. I watch kind of like the the kind of gothic films of
Obviously.
Roger Corman and Hammer and stuff like that, but they're not really. They I don't know. They don't play well for me. I can enjoy them. I watched Tomb of Ligeia the other day, the Roger Corman film with Vincent Price, and that was good fun. But I don't know. I think if I was 10 years older, even, I might be more interested in that whole Hammer stylings and the gothic stuff. But I don't know. I don't want to. It's Mario Bava's great. Maybe I should just limit it to $5 for an August Moon, but it's not a good movie. I think it's just quite a dull one. So,
Here's something controversial. Speaking of Bava, a lot of people hate his son Lamberto. His movies. I actually like a vast majority of his films. Some of them I find I wouldn't say better made, but possibly more entertaining than some of his harder work.
I agree with you 100%. I like Lamberto Bava's films much more than Mario Bava's films.
Well, I wouldn't say they're better made.
No, nothing's going to be
entertainment wise.
Yes.
Stuff like Blade in the Dark. I find that movie just wildly entertaining. Probably more so than any film Mario has ever made. Not better made, but I could rewatch it scale. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And Mario Bava never made a film where somebody defends himself with an electric whisk. So,
which one was that? Was that in Demons 2?
No, Midnight Killer. Is it Midnight Killer?
I don't think I've seen Midnight Killer.
Or I'll Kill You at Midnight, or one of that film. But yeah, it's a late 80s giallo.
It's awesome too because it's like she's able to keep the killer at bay with an electric mixer, and then it comes unplugged, and then then she's doomed. Like
it's a lot of fun, and Photo of Goya or those kind of films are good fun, aren't they?
I love Photos of Goya. God, that's another Lamberto movie that a lot of people give a flack for, but I just love it.
Ooh, I haven't seen that one.
Giant Eyeball Lady.
Yeah, Giant Eyeball Lady.
That's good. But anyway, Mario Bava is in a class of his own. But
seriously, guys,
what?
There's a movie. There's like a giallo called Giant Eyeball Lady.
No, it's Photos of Goya.
The killer sort of has hallucinations about what the women look like, and one of them has her head is a big giant eyeball.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
You should watch that. We should do. I tell you what. We should do a Lamberto Bava double bill. Lambata.
The categories.
Yes.
The Lambada.
Let's all dance. So anyway, that's controversial.
Yeah.
But I'm very disappointed, guys. Because I was hoping one of your picks would be Crazy Fat Ethel too.
Yeah, no.
That you did a 180 on.
Oh, no.
I'd like to do something on it, but
I did a 180 on. I actually did a 180 on that. I threw it in the garbage, but then I was like, it doesn't belong in the garbage, so I put it in a paper shredder.
This is terrible.
Yeah. Now you're being bullied. Now you know how it feels, Nathan.
Oh, it's awful.
It's awful, isn't it?
Well,
Poor Erik.
Poor Erik and poor Nathan.
I know.
It's 5 years, isn't it? So everyone deserves a good scare.
It's exactly 5 years today because I just looked on iTunes and the first episode was 31st of January 2000.
Ooh,
was it?
Yeah.
Gosh, well there you go.
One thing I was kind of wondering, speaking of bullying, every one of us has been bullied. Have I ever been bullied? I think everyone else has, but except me.
I think it was just those 3 girls with that hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, they bullied you.
Yeah, they bullied me.
Yeah, well, is that not a sign that you should cut off that mullet?
No, it wasn't a mullet.
He had spiky hair.
Yeah, it's all just kind of frizzy and wild and untamed. That's me, Erik. I'm untamed. You can't tame me. I'm what's his name? Langdon Alger.
Something like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Simpsons reference. You wouldn't get it.
Oh, I can never get those. I never get those. Okay, well let's move away from hair and let's move on to something, I don't know, more stabbing.
Hair raising.
Hair raising. That's good.
Yeah. Move on to wigs.
Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece of the macabre stars Anthony Perkins as the troubled Norman Bates, whose old dark house, in quotations, and adjoining motel are not the place to spend a quiet evening. No one knows that better than Janet Leigh, the film's ill-fated heroine, who is victimized in the now notorious shower scene. Vera Miles, Martin Balsam, John Gavin, and John McIntyre co-star in Hitchcock's most compelling and terrifying film, screenplay by Joseph Stefano, for mature audiences. That was from the MCA video cassette. I believe that came out in 85, maybe. I could be a little wrong, but anyway. What to say about Psycho? Is it the grandfather of all slasher films? Maybe. I think there were a lot of old dark house films doing roughly the same thing before Psycho came out. But Psycho was definitely probably the most mainstream film to kind of utilize quote-unquote graphic murders, quote-unquote nudity, and as we've said before, the first American film, at least, to show a flushing toilet. The cat agrees with me. Psycho. I really love Psycho. I think I've seen it too many times. I can kind of quote it verbatim, so it has lost a little luster. It's definitely a classic, a classic. But, like I said, it's not one I can watch a whole lot because I've seen it so many times. But I won't go into that. I will just say it's very well acted for the most part. Definitely Anthony Perkins and Janet Leigh are in top form here. The direction is just, phenomenal. Hitchcock really goes to town with just bizarre angles, and I believe this was shot in 35 millimeter, but he used a 50 millimeter lens in a lot of scenes to kind of give you that, just kind of, you're right there up close and personal with these people. The moment when Norman is peeping through the eye hole is one of the scenes that Hitchcock did this little trick, and it really does make you feel like you're just standing there. So, his direction is just kind of flawless, in my opinion. The infamous shower scene is great, often, I'd say very often, mimicked in a lot of films. One we actually covered not too long ago, The Funhouse did a fairly good Psycho shower scene riff. Like Jaws, Jaws makes you afraid of going in the ocean. Psycho made you afraid of taking showers. So, kudos and props for that. It's just a really well-made film, well-written, kind of dialogue heavy, through the middle portion, but I think, that works in its favor to give you an idea of who Norman Bates is. For the most part, who Janet Leigh's character is, until she's shockingly bumped off. You think you're going to follow her through the whole film, and she gets killed. And then her sister, Vera Miles' character, becomes kind of the main focus. So kind of a good turn there. I like that, how they kind of, shocked audiences. Boy, I really do have a lot more to say about the film. I'd say a definite thumbs way up. Not one I want to watch over and over again, because I kind of want to keep it, in its classic status. So for now, I'll turn it over to our resident bootlegger, Erik.
Shocking. Okay, well, I would agree with you on some counts there, because this isn't a film I would rewatch very often either. But it's not that I'm over familiar with it. It's because I think maybe if I was 10 years younger, it might resonate more with me. I mean, it is a classic, a classic, as Nathan would say. But for me, if it was a choice between watching 1960s Psycho or a 1970s or 1980s slasher movie, something that maybe rips off Psycho, Halloween, Black Christmas, whatever, I tend to go for the latter, I'm afraid to say. That's not to say I didn't enjoy Psycho. I do. I think it's a great movie. But as I said, it's not one I would watch a lot, whereas I can just endlessly watch Friday the 13th. I can endlessly watch Halloween, any of those. This one, it's kind of once every 4 or 5 years I'd probably be watching this, if at all. I often find myself drawn to imitators rather than originators. If you take, for example, my preference for Shakin' Stevens over Elvis. And I don't know if you had Shaky in the States, but you know what I mean by that, Justin.
Shaky.
Yeah.
I do, unfortunately, yes.
Yes. And that's kind of the case. Like, you were talking about Bava and thinking, maybe if I was born into a different era, I might appreciate Bava a bit more. I'm kind of the same with Hitchcock. I like his movies, but as brilliant a filmmaker as he is, I think the people who riff off him intrigue me more. People like Dario Argento and Brian De Palma. I much prefer their movies. Having said all that, this is a terrific film. and it's often credited with setting the template for slasher movies to come. And because of that, a lot of the beats in the film will seem overly familiar. But if I try and imagine myself as a 1960 patron going to see this film cold without knowing anything about it, I can imagine that would have been really shocking and really exciting and just kind of mind-blowing the way that the Hitchcock plays with the characters and the plot and the killing the Janet Leigh, who seems to be the main character, killing her 45 minutes into the film and then veering off and concentrate on another character for the rest of the film. Also, some of the violence, although it's in black and white, can be quite graphic. I happen to think the shower scene is kind of overrated. I think the murder of Detective Arbogast, is that his name, is more shocking. Mm-hmm. I think it's more expertly done, the way that Mother comes shooting out of the bedroom and stabs him or slices him across the face and he falls down the stairs. I think that's a much better sequence, in my opinion. The whole Janet Leigh thing, it's done a lot in more modern movies. I was trying to think of a film where I was shocked where a lead character was suddenly offed, and this is a really crass comparison. But when I went to see Deep Blue Sea, and this is
I was going to say that as well.
It's a spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen Deep Blue Sea, but Samuel L. Jackson is kind of top billed in the film, and then sort of an hour into the film, he's in mid-sentence and a giant shark jumps out of a pool and devours him whole in one go. That's kind of like, I was trying to imagine that happening, getting that effect from Psycho. Of course, we all know Psycho inside out. Even if you haven't seen it, you know exactly where the film's going. I'm wondering if Tarantino had the same idea in mind with Death Proof, because in Death Proof, what he does is he kills off the four main characters halfway through the film, and then sort of reboots it. And I was wondering if he's doing a real extreme version of killing off the Janet Leigh character. A couple of things I did notice watching it again this week for the first time in a couple of years since I've seen it was just how close Bernard Herrmann's score is to Harry Manfredini's music for Friday the 13th. I mean, there's such a degree of similarity that I'm surprised there wasn't a lawsuit, because a lot of it is a facsimile of what Bernard Herrmann did. Secondly, and I'm sure Joseph, you probably noticed this, is that what a set of bazungas Janet Leigh has.
Oh yeah,
she's going to have someone's eye out with those. They're so pointy. But seriously, she's one of those horror characters. I know we've discussed it before. Horror characters, victims that you don't want to see die. I mean, I know she's stolen this money from her employer. By the way, I went on to a inflation calculator to see what $40,000 would be worth now in 2016. So adjusted for inflation, that's about $320,000. Wow. Although in the 1998 remake, it's $400,000 she steals. The scene of the turning chair as well, revealing the dead body at the end, that's been done a zillion times in horror films ever since. And I'm sure that was probably the equivalent of Jason jumping out of the lake at the end of Friday the 13th for the 1960 audience. And the split personality of the killer, again, been done a million times. As I said, as good as Psycho is, in terms of rewatchability, I prefer the cheap knockoffs, the Friday the 13th. And the same with Hitchcock's The Birds, a movie I love, but it's the 70s Nature Takes Revenge stuff that rips off Birds that I prefer more. Things like Long Weekend, Phase 4, Kingdom of the Spiders, stuff like that. So if I was born 20 years early, like Justin was, this would probably be my Friday the 13th. So a great movie, but not one that would grace my cinema or my television too often, I'm afraid. But it's still a huge thumbs up.
Okay, no? One thing I was going to say, coming off of you saying you prefer the imitators, as it were. I think one thing I don't like about Psycho, and it's probably because I have seen, imitators, and I've seen people kind of truncate this type of narrative structure, is the overly didactic like ending portion where they basically explain to you, kind of talking down to you in a little bit, who Norman Bates really is. I think that was kind of totally unnecessary. I mean, for the time, maybe, because no one had seen something like this before, I could understand it. But, after seeing all these imitators, you pretty much know, what's going on. So I think that whole Norman psychosis this, Mother that, it's totally unnecessary. So, yeah, I get where you're coming from.
It's a bit Scooby-Doo, yeah.
Yeah, uh-huh. But Justin...
Right. Well, actually, Scooby-Doo did spring to mind as well with that kind of summing up at the end. But I saw, like all of you, I'm kind of over familiar with this film in the same way as I am with something like Halloween or something. Although, to be honest, I've probably seen Halloween a lot more than I've watched Psycho. But I got the Blu-ray I've got the box set, the Alfred Hitchcock box set, which has got The Birds and Torn Curtain, all those kind of films, and Frenzy in, but they were on DVD, so I thought I'd pick up a second-hand copy of the Blu-ray, and it looks fantastic. And I projected it onto a wall, so it was about 6 foot wide, so you get a feeling, I kind of guess, of how a film would play on a bigger screen when you've got more, room to look around. And so and I think it's an amazing film. I mean, it is, but I agree with Erik that I'd rather probably watch. I'm going to get more in some ways out of the rip-offs because, but it's a testament to the skill of Hitchcock that even though nothing in the way horror-wise really happens for the first third of the movie, that it keeps you engrossed, and all those tricks to keep you engrossed and. Kind of wanting to know what's going to happen to Janet Leigh, everything from having the sinister cop, which is almost like a foreshadow, isn't it, of Norman Bates, as far as what she perceives as going to be a risk to her, but turns out, well, not necessarily benign, but it's just a cop is following her, which doesn't really come to anything. But we can't underestimate the kind of power this film would have had at the time and how much it was hated and later celebrated. But there's lots of little cruel tricks in there. I think when they say that she was only 15 miles from Fairfield, so 15 miles from safety, basically, for Sam Loomis. And I did think it was not funny, but we'll talk about it, about the connections. But like Vera Miles was in The Initiation, and Daphne Zuniga's character's family were the Fairfields, weren't they? So you have all these kind of connections between Psycho. We'll talk a bit about that, I'm sure, to come. But I thought that was so well done, the whole build-up. I mean, I think with the Psycho, the shower murder is amazingly done, and I can see what you mean, Erik. But I think it's partly because, if we'd had seen that and didn't know that was coming, it would have been interesting to have watched an audience in 1960 or 61 watching that without knowing what was going to happen. And Hitchcock insisted that no one was allowed in to watch. Had to start watching from the beginning. And it was the first film that suggested that or insisted on that, because previously to that, and certainly probably, I don't know if that was an ongoing practice. I mean, maybe Nathan and Joseph can tell us, but are people still allowed to come in halfway through a movie and then watch?
Yeah, I mean, people will show up, halfway through a movie sometime and just get on their cell phones. It's not what it used to be.
Well, especially in multiplexes, it's so easy to walk from, like, your screen finishes and you just walk into another one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But could you, for instance, go in halfway through a movie and then watch the end and then watch the beginning?
I mean, you could. I mean, a lot of places, they're not really sticklers for checking tickets anymore, because basically, they have a lot of teenagers working there, and they're just kind of blasé and just, standing around all aloof. Back in the 80s or something, they had like more, I guess you'd say, stricter guidelines with people checking to make sure, no kids are in R-rated movies. But nowadays, I don't think they really even, bother as much.
Well, I mean, it's still technically against the rules of the theater, but like Joseph said, they just don't enforce it, really.
Yeah. Because when I worked at cinema, we had ushers for each screen, so you'd actually have an usher sat there and watching the whole film.
Yeah, that's how it used to be here in like the the 80s and maybe even the early 90s. But now it's just you buy your ticket, you go to the concession stand, you get in the movie theater, and it's just a lot of annoying people in the theater. And if you want to enjoy a theater experience and someone's just kind of ruining that for you, you basically have to get up and go find someone. There's no one in the movie just making sure everyone's in line. It's kind of a Thunderdome, I'd call it almost.
I want a movie usher like Selena from Movie House Massacre, who's going to shake her boobs at the screen and fight with customers.
Yeah, I am the main feature.
Sit on this, bitch.
It's funny because all the girl did was tell her to please sit down, and she's like cussing the customers, and then she keeps her job.
Yeah. So, but back to Psycho, I thought it's a great movie, and it's very difficult to watch a film like this. It's been spoofed and ripped off and been seen a million times that is now become part of the, well, it's been in the pop culture, a reference in pop culture now for nigh on 40 odd years, isn't it? Maybe longer. When was this? This came out
60.
Like 60. Well, 60. So what was that now? 55 years
56
old.
years, 55, 56 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's it's been. I mean, this in some ways, Psycho was, you could argue, was the first modern movie in horror, as thrillers go or as horror goes, that it wasn't a gothic film. It wasn't set in the past. It was, but it was down and dirty, and it broke taboos. We'll get into that a little bit about how difficult it was for Hitchcock to make it, but it kind of hit at the right time, didn't it? Because it was a massive hit. And it could easily have not been made at all. But it's a great film. I mean, it shows its age, especially the bit at the end where you have the whole kind of spoon feeding the audience about what they've just seen and what's happened, and the kind of the transvestitism of Norman Bates is kind of a bit, it's, I don't know, it's kind of seen as a part of his mental illness, but it's kind of a bit old-fashioned kind of ways of looking at things like that, I kind of guess. But overall, it's a great movie, and I really enjoyed watching it. Hitchcock is a master, and to be honest, I'd much rather watch Hitchcock. I love films like the Cary Grant films, but some of the ones I've watched more recently, I think like Topaz and some of the other ones, are quite dull. And in fact, actually, Vertigo, very celebrated film, is actually quite a dull film. When I watched it, I found it dragged a lot more than I remember it doing, outside of some of the fantastic suspense sequences. But yeah, Psycho is short, sharp, shock. It's a great movie.
Okay, Randall.
Oh, thanks, Hoyt.
What?
It's my middle name.
Oh.
I pretty much have to echo what you guys have said. I mean, it's a classic.
A classic.
Scott didn't mess me up that time.
But hold on, Nathan. Hold on. Let me.
Yes.
Oh,
you whore!
Oh no.
It's going to be a classic. I love that Joseph and Erik, right after I say that, are singing the Tina tune.
Why were we singing?
I don't remember the context, but
I don't either. But anyway, Psycho. No, it's a fantastic film. It's not one that I revisit a lot. It's not because it's a bad movie, of course. It just, I guess the rewatchability, is, like you guys have said, is not quite as high as some maybe the cheesier ripoffs. But I mean, the whole killing of the Janet Leigh character, I thought was a really, unique thing that Alfred Hitchcock did. And I love a lot of the set pieces, like the whole build up to Arbogast's death, when he's like slowly walking up the stairs and you see the door upstairs creaking open. I thought that was very suspenseful. And his fall down the stairs is so strange to me. It's like he stumbles down every single stair and then doesn't fully fall till he hits the bottom of the stairs or the floor. So, I mean, I always thought the way he fell was very strange and unique yet again.
I love the depth of perception with the like the dolly zoom coming on the floor, like coming at you, but him staying like in frame and him just stumbling. It's just really well shot.
Yeah, it's so different, from how anybody else I think would have shot a scene like that. And I love the finale, like the way everything builds up to Vera Miles walking up and finding out that Norman Bates' mother's dead. And when she sees it and screams, and her hand hits the light and it starts flashing over the dead mother's face, and I'm like, that was just brilliant to me. I mean, it was it's very memorable, like very unforgettable. I can kind of see what Eric's saying about the shower scene. I don't necessarily think it's overrated, but I do think, in all honesty, when I was a kid, I'd seen all the rip-off shower scenes before I actually saw the original one in Psycho. So it might not have had the same effect on me, whereas it would somebody who maybe had never seen anything like that before, like the audience at the time. But I I mean, I can't really. There's nothing really bad I can say about Psycho. I mean, I never really find it boring or anything. I think it's entertaining enough, and it's got some amazing set pieces, and that setting is fantastic between the house on the hill and the hotel. Well, that was great too. And I always thought the conversation between, Janet Leigh and Norman Bates was really interesting. I mean, I think he liked her. He was just crazy, of course.
Well, yeah, I think that the deal is that anytime he has these emotions for a woman, the mother side takes over, the nurturing mother who wants to protect her son from, interlopers coming in for her son. That's pretty much what I get out of it.
It's not very good for business.
No.
No.
Well, it didn't sound like he had much business anyway, did it? Sort of.
No. But no, I mean, I'm a huge fan, and I think I pretty much agree with what you guys have said about it.
For me, the most suspenseful moments in the film are when the cop is tracking Janet Leigh's character, especially where she's in the used car lot buying the secondhand car. If it is secondhand, it could be new, I don't know. And the cop is across the street just standing there staring at her. It was kind of like something from Halloween. I thought those scenes were suspenseful.
Well, it was kind of the whole Hitchcock thing, wasn't it? Of the ticking bomb under the table is far more suspenseful if people don't know it there than it going off. So he was almost like it was the money she had was like ticking bomb, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, Joseph, did you want to say some more about it, or maybe we could move on to some background?
I have a bit of background here. If you want to go ahead and move into that.
Yeah, well, we can talk about, because I think we're probably the other things to talk about. I mean, without it turning into a 45-hour show, is some of the films that followed, both in the Psycho. We're going to cover 2 and 3 at some point as a double bill, I believe. But we could talk a little bit about that, and also some of the other, because Erik said you've been watching films connected to that way, but also some of the films that followed immediately afterwards. But should we start with some background on this, Joseph? Do you want to?
Sure. Let's see. The budget was about $800,000, I think. I got a really specific number. It's kind of weird. It says 806,947. It's kind of an odd number, but apparently that was the budget, and the actual cumulative gross was $32 million. So, boy, adjusted for inflation now, $32 million would probably be like around $1 billion, maybe. I don't know.
Let me work on that while you're giving us your background.
Yeah. Anyway, as we've said before, this was the first American film to ever show a flushing toilet on screen. Let's see. Alfred Hitchcock was so pleased with the score written by Bernard Herrmann that he doubled the composer's salary to $34,901. Again, another specific number. Hitchcock later said 33% of the effect of Psycho was due to the music. Although Janet Leigh was not bothered by the filming of the famous shower scene, seeing it on film profoundly moved her. She later remarked that it made her realize how vulnerable a woman was in the shower. To the end of her life, she always took baths. Let's see. Walt Disney refused to allow Alfred Hitchcock to film at Disneyland in the early 1960s because Hitchcock had made, quote unquote, that disgusting movie Psycho. And if you know anything about Walt Disney, you might can call him hypocritical, but we won't get into that.
And a bit of a Nazi, apparently.
Yeah, there you go. On set, Alfred Hitchcock would always refer to Anthony Perkins as Master Bates.
You made that up.
No, I did not make that up.
You
I'm not kidding.
You totally.
No, that's trivia I found. I don't know if it's true. That's just what I found.
That's like something Justin would say. It's so mature.
I thought it sounded like one of your jokes of the week.
Yeah,
No.
we still got that.
We still got that to come, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. Alfred Hitchcock bought the rights to the novel by Robert Bloch anonymously for only $9,000. He then bought up as many copies of the novel as he could to keep the ending a secret. And as we were talking about earlier, every theater that showed the film had a cardboard cutout installed in the lobby of Alfred Hitchcock pointing to his wristwatch with a note from the director saying, quote unquote, "The manager of this theater has been instructed at the risk of his life not to admit to to the theater any persons after the picture starts. Any spurious attempts to enter by side doors, fire escapes, or ventilating shafts will be met by force. The entire objective of this extraordinary policy, of course, is to help you enjoy Psycho more. Sincerely, Alfred Hitchcock. And I mean, there's a lot more, but I'll just kind of wrap it up here. According to Stephen Rebello, author of Alfred Hitchcock and the Making of Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock was displeased with the performance of John Gavin, who played Sam Loomis in the film, and referred to that actor as the Stiff. And that's pretty much all I got. I mean, the rest is pretty much stuff people have probably heard a million times over. So,
Right, well, thank you, Joseph. Who would like to go next? Nathan, do you have any background for us?
Joseph read the bits of background that I had. It wasn't the Master Bates one, though. I didn't have that background.
Okay.
That's because he made it up.
I did not make that up. Go to the IMDb, Eric, after you're done illegally downloading movies.
Ooh!
Joseph, was that some Inga coming out of you?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh my God. 5 years. It took 5 years.
Turn to Inga. Well, we all know who the Norman Bates of the podcast is, don't we?
No.
Justin. Because Justin probably has dead bodies in his cellar because he's a goth. And also he likes to dress up as women.
I said he was a mother, yeah.
I don't have a basement. Two, I don't like to dress up as a...
You do?
I've dressed up a couple of times as a woman for New Year's
Yeah, and you
Eve.
love it. You love the way the silk feels against your skin.
Well, I would wear silk, Eric.
I pictured Justin wearing silk pajamas to bed.
I don't wear anything to bed.
Ooh,
Justin. Saucy.
Yeah. Okay, well, I got my big inflation calculator out, and in today's money, Psycho grossed 256 million.
Wow.
Domestically.
Okay, I've got a few bits and bobs. Now, as I was concentrating on my big inflation calculator, forgive me if you may mention one or two of these, Joseph, because I couldn't concentrate on two things at once. It was filmed between November 1959 and February 1960, and then it was released in June of 1960. In the novel, apparently it's much more violent. Marion Crane is actually decapitated in the shower, and Norman Bates is an older, fatter alcoholic, and he's more sort of an obviously deviant character. And in the novel, he's apparently into the occult and pornography, which makes him very like Justin, actually, if you ask me.
Well, I think that's a case of the pot calling the kettle black.
Ooh, ooh. Hitchcock wanted to make it in black and white for two reasons. Firstly, he thought it would be too violent to be shot in color. And also, he wanted to take on a low-budget project to see... He was looking around and seeing all these schlocky directors making really low-budget pictures and getting lots of return for them. So he said, what if I, a super talented director, did one of these low-budget films? How would it turn out? And that was his experiment. So he used mainly his TV crew from Alfred Hitchcock Presents rather than his regular film crew. And he shot it on the cheap, as he said, for $800,000. He encouraged rumors that he was casting for the role of Mother to throw people off the scent, of the movie's final twist. Now, I'm having a bit of deja vu about that fact. Was there a film we covered recently that had something similar on it, where they to throw people off the scent of a twist, they were send out rumors they were casting for a character who wasn't real? No?
I don't remember.
Okay, maybe I might have made that up. Virginia Gregg, she did the bulk of the vocal work for Mrs. Bates in the movie, and she also reprised that role in the two sequels in the 80s, Psycho 2 and Psycho 3. The car that Marion Crane buys at the car sales room is the same car and the same number plate that Janet Leigh drives in Halloween H2O, released 38 years later. In the scene where Marion is driving out of town and she accidentally spots her boss crossing the road, you may notice, no, I didn't notice this, it was only courtesy of the gentleman on the audio commentary track who wrote that book you mentioned, Joseph, Alfred Hitchcock in the Making of Psycho. He does a commentary track on the Blu-ray, and he says that when she's in that scene, you can see Christmas decorations hanging in the town in the background, and that is why that was kind of accidental, and that's why Hitchcock went back and put in those title cards to start setting the film in December. Anthony Perkins was a gay man. Apparently, according to his unauthorized biography, he had dalliances with many famous men prior to getting married to a lady.
What? No.
It's true. So his liaisons included Tab Hunter, Rudolf Nureyev, and Stephen Sondheim. His first lady friend was Victoria Principal, whom he met on the set of 1972's The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean. Anthony Perkins sadly died of an AIDS-related illness on September the 12th, 1992. And then in what's an equally tragic twist, almost 9 years to the day later, his widow, Berry Berenson, who was an actress, a model, and a photographer, she died as one of the passengers on the first plane to crash into the World Trade Center. And doing some research on that, it's really kind of dark. I mean, did you know that? And this is really weird, a weird coincidence after you doing your impression of Marky Mark. But apparently, Mark Wahlberg and Seth MacFarlane were both had tickets booked on the same flight, but missed it for various reasons. So we could be living in a world now without Marky Mark, our Family Guy.
No.
Yeah. Hitchcock was kind of worried about possible censorship problems with the film. And his plan B, if he couldn't get released theatrically, was to, I assume, to cut maybe some of the violence and then release it in 2 parts as part of his TV show, which was running at the time, called Alfred Hitchcock Presents. And I think that's all the background I have. So over to you, Justin.
Okay, well, thank you. I mean, there's so much written about this film, so it can only sort of scratch the surface. But a few things, I had to look back through Variety to see, and it's interesting. They were saying at the time, the film, they were comparing how they sold Psycho to audiences, like how they sell cars, or they sold cars at the time. And Hitchcock said, is quoted as saying, Psycho tells how his newest Psycho is sold like the automobile people herald an upcoming model. They don't unveil anything till it's ready for the showroom, but they do a lot of talking. So, as I say, he wanted, as we talked about, he didn't want people coming in and ruining the end of the scene. And apparently it was quite a controversial thing at the time that theatre owners were worried that it would put people off coming to see the movie, but obviously that wasn't the case. It's a bit like Halloween in some ways. I mean, there's lots of comparisons with Halloween, but the film got very, very mixed reviews when it first came out. In fact, the one, I think it was the critic for The Observer in Britain, actually walked out of the screening and gave their job up at that same time because of the film, because they hated it so much. They actually gave their job up as a film reviewer. So it got very, very mixed reviews. But when it went on to make so much money, it got reassessed. So when people now think that everyone loves Psycho, just in the way everyone thinks that everyone loved Halloween to start off with, it wasn't the case. And so I think there was a case of some people who gave it scathing reviews actually had to go back and look at it again. And because, again, you can't underestimate the fact that this type of film was shocking to be made. And it's somebody like Hitchcock, it's a bit like, I'm trying to think of somebody who's like a highbrow director now, you know, making a kind of a fart comedy or something. I don't know. It's not almost as shocking as that. You know, it's something. It's kind of like people were like that he was prostituting himself, and that it wasn't really understood at the time. It's also the comparisons continue with other slasher movies, because this was put out by Paramount, although it was shot at Universal Studios, and Paramount treated this like it's dirty secret, a bit like how they treated the Friday 13th series, many years later. But it was actually Paramount's biggest money earner since the Ten Commandments, which was a very big hit for them. Psycho, one of the things I noticed actually, and I've never seen this before, was that when there's no nudity in that you see in the shower sequence, the killing, and in fact there's only one moment where you actually see the knife actually touching flesh, but when
I think I read it was like two frames. You see the knife touching the skin,
but it doesn't go in, or it's done in such a way that it's kind of, it may have been done reverse cut, so it was filmed in reverse, so it looks like it's going and stabbing, but it isn't. And it famously, Hitchcock just he got in trouble with the censors, and they said, "You've got to cut this," and he just went back and said, "I've done it," and they watched it again, and he didn't cut anything, and they passed it because they thought it had been cut. But they thought they saw nudity in that scene, but there wasn't. But actually, you do see a nipple, shockingly enough. But in the scene where Norman Bates pulls the body of Marion Crane, which of course isn't actually Janet Leigh by that point, out and puts her on the plastic shower curtain, and you also see that the dead body is wearing knickers. So it was kind of a little blooper there. There was, again, comparing it to later films, in October 1960, Hitchcock had to defend the film and his filmmaking against the fact that there was somebody who committed a murder or a violent crime, and so Psycho was accused of promoting violence and actually being, incentivizing or whatever violence in people. What else was there? Janet Leigh, like Adrienne King, but possibly other slasher movie heroines and Final Girls, actually found herself under attack by crazed fans. And it says, I saw this, I say this is on Wikipedia, whether or not it's true or not, but it says, until her death, Leigh continued to receive strange and sometimes threatening calls, letters, and even tapes detailing what they would like to do to Marion Crane. One letter was so... Erik.
That's what they'd like to do.
That was what you... It's from you, wasn't it? Poor Janet Leigh.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
It said it must be from you. It says, one letter was so grotesque that she passed it along to the FBI. Two of those agents visited Leigh and told her the culprits had been located near Dublin, and she should notify the FBI if she received any more letters of that type.
I was under a lot of stress at the time.
Okay, well, fair enough. Did you mention that also, because Hitchcock has got... I started reading, I never finished it, but there's a book, I think it's called Hitchcock and His Blondes, because Hitchcock had a kink, I can guess for want of a better term, of terrorising his heroines, and especially blonde ones. And Tippi Hedren, famously, he made her shoot the scenes over and over and over again with the birds. In Psycho, he would take the mother's corpse and dress it up and put it in around the sets, and sometimes in Janet Leigh's wardrobe to try and scare her. But she said she took the joke well. So that was... that's kind of... There's a lot more to be said about Psycho, but the thing... But did we want to... Eric, did you want to talk any about what was spawned by Psycho?
Well, obviously 22 years later, or 23 years later, was it 83, Psycho 2 came out with with Anthony Perkins and Vera Miles reprising the roles, followed 3 years later by Psycho 3. Now, we're going to cover both those two, so I don't know if you want to go into any detail about them. But I will say this, Psycho 3 is the most slasher-like of the series, in my opinion. It's probably quite trashy as well. I haven't looked into what kind of reviews it got at the time, but I imagine they were kind of scathing, but I happen to think it's quite fun. Psycho 4 then came out in 1990, direct to cable TV, I think it was, rather than to video, and it's kind of cheap looking. It's set a lot in a radio station where there's a psychologist doing a phone-in show, and Norman Bates rings in and he's talking to the host from his kitchen. So it's kind of two locations. And then it flashes back to his early life, where Henry Thomas of E.T. fame plays a young Norman Bates, and he's an uncanny lookalike, actually. For when I was watching Psycho this week, the original 1960 version, there's an uncanny resemblance between Henry Thomas, aged whatever he was, 18, 19 at the time, and Anthony Perkins. So it's a good bit of casting. But it has that same kind of cheap, I suppose cheap, yeah, feel. It reminded me of the production values of something like Amityville, The Evil Escapes, or House 4, or all those kind of direct-to-video things that were coming out around 1990. But, I mean, it's entertaining in a certain way, but it's certainly not essential. Have you seen Psycho 4, anyone?
Yes.
Subtitled
Yes.
recently.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it before, but I saw it probably about 3 or 4 months ago.
What did we make of it?
It was all right. Yeah.
I mean, how much do you want to go in on Psycho 2 and 3? Do you want to say anything about them, or...?
I'm going to wait until we cover them, because they are a listener pick coming up
Yes.
sometime.
Okay.
Yeah, and also we're at the 2 hour mark. So
Yeah.
we should
Okay, well then I'll quickly mention another one I saw for the first time this week. I'd been aware of it since it was released on VHS in the late 80s, but I'd never watched it. It's called Bates Motel. It's not to be confused with the more recent TV show. It's a 1987 made-for-TV pilot, which it never got picked up for a series, so it's kind of a standalone item. I don't know if any of you guys watched it, but it's got this very weird structure. It focuses for the first half of the film on this character of Alex, who inherits the Bates Motel. Because he was in an asylum with Norman Bates. Norman Bates dies, and he gives the motel to this guy Alex. So he does the thing up, and that first hour of it is him inheriting the hotel. A few people drop in and out and are suspicious of him, and blah 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 blah. And it seems quite inconsequential. And then what happens an hour in is this woman books into the motel, and the film just shifts focus to her totally, and it develops a supernatural tone. It's totally at odds with the first hour of the film completely, and at odds with the whole thing is at odds with the Psycho franchise in general. I mean, it's a real oddity. I think what happened is the first hour is supposed to be the pilot movie, and then the next half hour was supposed to be maybe a first episode. It looked like the way it was going to be set up was that each episode would be a different guest, a different story, basically. A different guest checks in, and it's their story that follows. So it was kind of like Freddy's Nightmares, where Freddy would top and tail maybe the completely unrelated story in between. And that's looked like the way Bates Motel was heading. But it's quite light and quite... it's very sort of 7 p.m. on TV type fare. There's nothing terribly racy or violent or anything in it. And it kind of has a jokey sense of humor. And the end of... this Bates Motel, the 1987 version, is completely Scooby-Doo, because you don't have just one person being unmasked. You have two people being unmasked who are dressed up as mother. I thought it's very weird, but an interesting oddity, I think. As I said, it looked like it was heading in the same direction as Freddy's Nightmares, so it's quite cheesy.
I do have a question about the 87 version, Eric. Where did you get that?
It was on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is on YouTube.
It is. I looked it up.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Erik, for that.
Of course, there's so none of you have watched it, I assume. No,
I haven't watched it yet.
Okay, but I know that Joseph and Nathan have seen some, and I've watched the first 4 episodes of the 2013 Bates Motel TV series, and I didn't know anything about it going into it, but I was surprised at a few things. One, it's set in the present day, so it's not really, it's sort of reimagining Psycho. I thought it was going to be a prequel. Secondly, what really surprised me is I've only watched the first 4 episodes, but both Norman Bates and his mother, Norma Bates, seem to be the most normal characters in the series, as in, like, they're quite likable. And nothing, they don't see, like, one of them does commit a murder in the first episode, but it's completely justified. So it's quite unusual, and it does seem completely different to the Psycho universe we know from the first 4 movies. But I thought it's intriguing. I mean, not a lot has happened in it so far that I would consider sort of really, really exciting, but it is keeping me hooked, and I will watch it to the end of the season. There's only 10 episodes in the first season. You've watched the whole of the season, have you, Joseph? Was it?
Yeah, I saw the entire first season. I haven't watched any of it, the rest of it yet. I kind of liked it. I liked how they were kind of more than normal, while everyone else in the town was kind of
that's the thing,
offbeat. I probably will catch up with it eventually. I don't know, for some reason I just haven't got back to it.
And before you ask, I saw this on Netflix, Justin.
I didn't. The thought didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah, I'm sure it didn't.
This is the new Allendale joke.
Yeah. Nathan, even you've seen the first few episodes, you said, before you got sidetracked.
Yeah, I've seen, I think the first 2, maybe 3 episodes, but I watched it. It's been a long time ago when I watched those episodes, and I liked it well enough, but I guess it didn't just quite hook me. But it is something I want to go back and give another shot to, because I've heard good things.
Yeah, I think the general consensus is it's quite strong. I found it better than, I've only watched, in the last 6 months, I've watched, in terms of TV series, Scream Queens, Ash vs. Evil Dead, and the first season of American Horror Story. And of the four, I think Ash vs. Evil Dead is probably my favorite because it's just, you know, there's no fat on that because it's just lean and mean and pure horror and it keeps the tone of the movies. But
they did a good job keeping it at like 20 minutes per episode. I think all TV shows should do that.
Yeah, but I certainly thought Bates Motel, from what I saw, was better than Scream Queens or American Horror Story. But I'm still more of a movie man, I have to say, than a TV series man. Or a woman.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you, Erik. So, but I'm just going to mention a little bit about what came after Psycho, because one of the things I found, and I haven't actually had a chance to look into this, but a little snippet in Variety was that Paramount took out an injunction against, I think it was MGM. I'm not sure if it's MGM, but David O. Selznick, who's one of the movie moguls, had registered the title Schizo in 1961 under the title. It says the title war broadens significant, but the title battle looms over David O. Selznick's recent MPAA registration as Schizo, with Paramount this week filing an MPAA protest claiming it's harmful conflict with its own Psycho. I mean, that was kind of really a hint of what was to come, because again, they're kind of mirroring what happened later with, say, with Friday the 13th and Halloween and Friday the 13th, that there was a proliferation of cheap slasher movies, but also the big studios also wanted their cut of the kind of the slasher movie market. So we saw this very much after this, and probably most notable ones are films like Homicidal, which followed very quickly and took over. Well, that exaggerated the whole transvestite angle of Psycho. But Hammer in the UK came out with many Psycho kind of rip-offs or riffs of it, like Taste of Fear, Maniac, Paranoiac, Nightmare, Fanatic, The Nanny. All these films were certainly inspired by Psycho, and then you got into films like that sounded like a crop dusting.
Yeah, I know.
It's like north by northwest.
Yeah. I live on a very heavily trafficked area. Sorry,
on a roundabout.
But all those, so you got those kind of films like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane and things like that wouldn't have probably been made if it wasn't for Psycho, because what they showed is you could have kind of cheap, kind of in inverted commas, sort of horror material would be box office, or could be box office bonanza, and attracted kind of people who probably would never have deemed or never considered making films of that type before Psycho made so much money. So I mean, there were loads. I mean, you go Hysteria, Violent Midnight.
That's where you got the name from, isn't it? That movie.
What of the?
Where Hysteria lives.
Well, yeah, I think it was kind of coincidental, because there's also, I think this Hysteria is an 80s slasher spoof as well. So it's, but I can't remember. To be honest, I can't remember where I dreamt up that title. It's so long ago now. But
I think one movie if you have mentioned it, I apologize, but one movie we really should mention that really owes a lot to Psycho is Dressed to Kill.
Yes, that's true.
Because I mean, that movie basically is Psycho.
Well, exactly. Well, especially because it's the murder in the it is, isn't it? The murder in the lift. Yeah, it's basically the murder in the shower.
Transvestitism and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, De Palma.
Can I be controversial and say I prefer Dressed to Kill?
I do as well.
Okay. Well, I think they're both
what do you
fine
think?
movies. Both fine movies, but I would say Psycho's a better movie than Dressed to Kill.
Well, yeah, it's better film.
Yeah. Because De Palma was he was like riffing off Psycho, wasn't he? And I think he never quite. I mean, he did that with Sisters, didn't he? And Raising Cain, and pretty much all of his films, really, weren't they? Kind of almost pastiches. Certainly, Sisters was a real pastiche of Hitchcock.
Yeah.
But yes, okay. Well, is there anything else to say? Or we this epic show?
Do you think maybe read a couple of these Facebook posts?
Yes. Well, I tell you what. If you read out the Facebook posts, and then we'll do Erik's joke of the week, and then we'll do some other feedback before we finish. How about that?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. This is from Bob Hartshorn. He says, "I saw Psycho for the first time back in the mid-'70s. I was about 10 years old, and I watched it with my older sisters in their bedroom late one Saturday night where it was shown on BBC Two. The tone, music, black and white camera work, characters, and moments of terror shook me to my prepubescent core, not least the climactic reveal in the fruit cellar, which, along with Jason's iconic surprise appearance at the end of the original Friday the 13th, has to be one of the most profound moments of shock sentiment in the history of horror movies. I never grow tired of this classic as it ages like a fine wine, with Tony Perkins, Norman Bates feeling more and more like a sympathetic anti-hero after every rewatch. I rate the sequels too, especially Psycho 2, which I consider a vastly underrated gem. Any chance of covering that one, guys? And yes, we will be covering that soon. And what are your thoughts on Hitchcock's Frenzy? This one has grown on me a lot over the years and has to be my second love from the master after Psycho. Can I nominate this one for a future THC as well? That was from Bob Hartshorn.
Well, thank you, Bob.
Vaughn Colmier, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, says the fact that when I first saw this film as a little kid, it shocked me who the killer was. The only thing that dates the film is the exploration near the end, but all in all a great film. Also, Erik is like a Queenie version of Norman Bates, just saying.
Justin is Norman Bates. We've established that already. You're the one who dresses up like the lady every time you get a chance.
Oh, Erik.
And you're into dead bodies because you're a big goth.
Erik, do you remember what we said about the bullying? Do you remember what HR said? If it happens again...
If it happens again, there's going to be some laughing. John Matthews says, a classic not only set up the whole slasher genre, but changed the horror films from B-grade cheapies into a respectable genre. Anyone could have adapted the book and made a moderate adaptation that would have been forgotten. Everyone knows the plot, but it's Hitchcock's masterful filmmaking that makes it engaging. No matter what subject matter with Hitchcock, it would be masterful. Though I'd prefer older Hitchcock from his British days, Lady Vanishes, Man Who Knew Too Much. The black and white cinematography takes me back to those masterworks. The sequels are surprisingly good too. I am referring to 2, 3, and 4. Can't wait for you guys to cover them. That was John Matthews.
Thank you, John.
Kieran Edwards says, so yeah, it's a classic. Obviously, Mr. Perkins' work is superlative, but I personally think Miss Lee's work is even better. And every time I see this film, I'm always very sad when she dies. The death of Arbogast is still more of a shock to me because Norman's mother appears just a second or two quicker than you expect her to. A great pick for a great anniversary, and I look forward to you covering the sequels. P.S. You've probably already mentioned this, but I thought it was appropriate that you finally talked about this film, since I believe it's the first one that shows a toilet being flushed. It might have been less scandalous to audiences in 1960 if it wasn't flushed by Janet Leigh, but by a pussycat.
There wasn't a big poo in the toilet either. It was just bits of torn out paper.
Thanks for looking, Erik.
Yeah, it's obviously what happens in Erik's house.
Well, no, but normally when people flush the toilet, it's because there's a big poo in it. But not in the case of Psycho, there isn't. It's just some torn up bits of paper.
Good grief. Rob Doyle says, I saw Psycho as a child on TV. I think the fact that it was a black and white film made my parents think it was more kid-friendly, like the old Universal monster movies of the 30s. But in fact, it scared me shitless and put me off going down the cellar in our house for quite a while. I think I heard the reason that it was made in black and white, even though color films were mainstream, was because Hitchcock thought it would be too gory in color, and that's what I read. The image of Norman Bates' mother's shriveled eyes inside her mummified body, waiting down in that cellar, gave me the willies. That's from Rob Doyle.
Well, thank you, Rob.
Dave Rendoni says, while I wasn't due to arrive on this earth for a good 7 years, I'm proud to report that my dad and mother caught this in the theaters all those years ago. Now with an adult daughter of my own, born on September 8th, no less, I'm often quoting California Charlie's line about the first customer of the day always the most trouble. If I get a rowdy client on my initial queue at work, but speaking of mother, it was her that took me to the sequel in 1982, and I was trying to think how I could possibly sit through the brutal murder and rape of a nun that opened Bloch's novel of Part 2. Luckily, it was just a couple of teens getting offed, so we could both enjoy the show. To close, happy 5 years from an alleged horror guy that hadn't even heard of half the movies you and your guest cohorts have discussed. Keep 'em rolling until I'm old, gray, and stuffed in a fruit cellar.
Well, thank you, Dave.
Lars Peterson says, I have a fever, and the only prescription is the Psycho podcast, which I guess we have now, so it will all be good now. And yes, I believe this to be Hitchcock's best, closely followed by Vertigo and Rear Window. Direction, photography, set design, music score, acting, everything is just pure masterclass. Only things missing is a random cat flushing some toilets and a guest appearance by toddler Alan Dale.
Well, thank you, Lars.
Brad Yasuda says, the granddaddy of slasherdom, finally. I watch it once a year just to keep it fresh in my head. I find no fault in this one. Here's a fact that usually doesn't make the rounds. The body double for Janet Leigh was killed in her shower by her gardener by stabbing. Life parallels art. Yeah, life parallels art. Anyway, looking forward to this one and hoping you four will eventually cover Theater of Blood since you're starting to do proto-slashers again.
Well, thank you, Brad. It kind of depends whether or not anyone's... I don't know if... Has anyone asked for Theatre of Blood?
No, I don't think so.
Might be a while until we get to it.
Yeah, but we will eventually. David Millay says, people say the theme to Reanimator is a ripoff of Psychos. I never really noticed until I looked it up. If you guys haven't yet, then you should play sound bites of both to show how obvious it is. I love Reanimator and like its version more, so I say it's an homage.
Like its version.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So I say it's an homage like Charles Band says. By the way, you guys are stupid sexy, and I can't wait for my listener pick. Oh, boy.
Oh,
David Millay. Yeah, I know which one he picked. Ugh, hey.
Oh, I must look it up.
Let's see. Andrew Rooney says, wow, can't wait for this. This is a perfect film.
Oh,
Gus
God.
Van Sant gives a directing masterclass, and Vince Vaughn knocks it out of the park, as always.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that one.
Yeah.
I did watch the remake this week as well.
You know what?
Was it any good? I've never
It's
seen
not.
it.
It's actually not bad. I mean, it's kind of pointless, but it's not bad.
I would agree with Joseph. Yeah, I mean, I've certainly in the wake of that, we've had a plethora of horrible remakes which have tried to remake.
Rob Zombie.
Yes, and also Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th remakes, awful. At least with this one, it's a shot-for-shot remake. I mean, it is pointless, as you say, and it feels a bit soulless. But it was weird watching it back-to-back with the 1960 version. It's like watching an alternate cut or something. But no, there's nothing terribly wrong with it, but it doesn't serve any purpose, really.
Yeah. Okay, just a couple more here. Soren Thompson says, I'd like to highlight Bernard Herrmann's classic, or Harriman, or I don't remember how to pronounce his name, his score. Probably the most influential horror score ever, endlessly imitated but never surpassed. Of course, the story goes that Alfred Hitchcock originally wanted no music for the infamous shower sequence, but Bernard wrote and recorded a cue for it anyway. When Hitchcock saw the result, he referred to his initial idea of having no music as an improper suggestion. The rest, as they say, is history. And let's see. Finally, Brian Kane says, if anyone needs me, I'll be in the cellar wearing my mother's dress and wig while waiting for this episode. Carry on.
Excellent.
Well, do you know what is different actually about the 1998 remake is that when Vince Vaughn as Norman Bates is spying on Marion Crane's he's doing this.
Yeah. That's the only difference I can
well, and also when he knocks out Sam Loomis, it's with a golf club in the 1998 version, whereas I think it's with one of his stuffed birds or something in the 1960 version.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, thank you for that feedback. That's all good. Is it time?
I think it is.
I think it's time, isn't it? So, yeah. Okay.
Brace yourselves.
Brace yourselves. Brace.
It's my joke of the week. It's so great and fantastic.
I met the cast of Psycho once. I got on really well with Janet Leigh, but I found Vera Miles to be a bit distant.
Jeez.
Wow.
Nathan liked it.
God.
I think Justin might have died from laughter. There's no reaction from him.
I'm trying to pull myself together.
JP Cubish over there died from laughter.
That was a good one, Erik. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, that was fairly clever.
You didn't even get one of these, did you?
Oh,
No. So well done.
thank you.
I'm playing some birdsong in the background anyway. Just
It's very pastoral.
yes, it is.
You just listen to their call. Hooey,
A weep,
hooey,
a weep.
hooey.
So thank you for that. Let's move on to some feedback, shall we?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
I said okay.
Okay. Who would like to go first?
I will.
Okay.
Okay, this is from Jenny, and Jenny, I don't know how to pronounce your surname, so forgive me. It's Jenny Tousignant. Anyway, she says, hello guys, it's Jenny from last time, the one with the dreaming Alice theory. I'm glad to be all ears in time for the 5th anniversary podcast. First, thank you for discussing my theory a few weeks ago. I have to say I actually agree with you all. I only had the theory in mind while listening to Adrian King in the Friday the 13th podcast, and I thought it was something to share. I'm glad you're talking about Psycho today. I always thought it was an important movie in the horror history, also in the slasher subgenre. Some people don't want Psycho to be a slasher, but I disagree a bit. An old dark house in the middle of nowhere, a masked or disguised killer, 2 explicit murders with a big kitchen knife. What is missing are horny teenagers and more dead bodies, but that wasn't very fashionable in 1960, not yet. I finally would like to thank you all for discussing some other movies I discovered with Hysteria Continues. The House on Sorority Row and The Slayer are now among my favourite slashers, which is great. They're among ours as well. And thank you also for The Last Slumber Party, which made me laugh so much while watching the movie and listening to your podcast. I can't imagine they were really serious while filming it. They must have been aware they were actually working on a sort of comedy or parody. Keep up the good and funny work, guys. I love you all. And you are making my days when I'm listening to you. And that's from Jenny Tousignant. Tousignant.
Just call her Jenny from the block.
Jenny from the block.
We always murder people's last names, don't we?
I know.
Especially you, Joseph.
Yeah.
But,
We always murder people.
last names.
Last names, yeah. Sorry.
Yes. So, well, thank you, Jenny. I'm glad. Always good to introduce people to new classics, or in
Like The Last Slumber
Nathan's
Party.
case. Not
Well,
classics.
Nathan has converted one person to The Last Slumber Party. In fact, I think I remember enjoying this Last Slumber Party as well.
I feel great about that.
Yeah, well done. That's good. Thank you. Well, thank you, Erik and Jenny. Who wants to go next?
I don't have anything.
Oh, you don't have anything? Okay. Have you got anything, Nathan?
No.
No. Okay. Right. Well, I've got a couple of very short ones here, both from somebody called Robert Shardello. Hopefully pronouncing your last name.
You
right,
didn't.
Robert. I didn't. How would you pronounce it then?
I don't know. I'm just saying we butcher last names, so you probably didn't.
No, but it's Shardello. But he says, hi, Hysteria Continues, just writing in with a top 3 suggestion. In fact, he's got 2 top 3 suggestions. Best and worst slasher movie sex scenes. Very curious to see what you guys come up with. I'm trying to think, what would be, well, maybe we shouldn't talk about those because we could, but one that springs to mind is the sex scene in Evil Laugh, when the killer grabs the guy's butt, and then they.
I thought you were going to
Slaughter High.
I thought you were going to bring up Madman with that weird hot tub.
Oh, the swirly
around
hot tub
the
scene.
hot
Yeah.
tub.
Yeah.
No, but don't you remember in Evil Laugh when they do, because that whole thing
Yeah,
they did in The
yeah.
Haunting, where it's got that's not my hand, and it's kind of
Yeah.
he says that or the woman says that's not my hand grabbing your butt, and he says, well, whose hand is it?
What about the 5-second or 6-second scene too that Judith Myers gets at the start of Halloween?
Yes.
I thought you were going to mention Slaughter High's tits. Screw.
Yeah, like that's his dirty talk.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, let's save the rest because that could be a good one. But the other one he suggests is top favourite, top 3 suggestion of favourite old ladies in slash movies.
That's actually, I actually kind of like that idea. Because my number 1 would be the shopkeeper from Nail Gun Massacre.
Mine would be Ethel from Friday the 13th Part 5 A New Beginning.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah, and also the one in Satan's Blade, the old lady in the
Yeah.
shop.
Oh, and my number one actually would probably be the woman from Splatter Farm, the one that you guys laughed at when we played a sound clip of hers.
Jeremy, no.
Yeah, like he was gonna kill her, and she's like, Jeremy, no, Jeremy.
I love it when people rope in their grandmas to make slasher movies.
And
they're shoe rats.
awesome. Oh, well, I mean, she loves her fans. I'll say that still.
Well, absolutely. So, well, I think that is I don't know if this is our longest one ever, but
No,
currently
Pieces, I think, is still our longest episode.
What was that? What's that run to?
It was over 3 hours.
Oh my God, was it really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, there was a lot to talk about in Pieces, in fairness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up to 2.5 hours, so it's probably time to let you good people go. But before we do, well, actually, we've got 7 minutes of music to play out with, haven't we? But before we do, Nathan, it is your pick next time.
No, it's Joseph's pick next.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it? I thought we were... Okay.
Well, the way we're recording them is going to be different, but my pick will be debut.
Aired first, right?
Okie doke.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do that. So what are we going to be covering next time?
We will. It's another listener pick. We are covering 1980s Maniac, and I think we'll have a guest on the show. I'll have to double check.
Okay, excellent. All right. Well,
Joe Spinell.
Joe Spinell. Well,
Yeah, we're going to dig him up and bring him on the show.
Yes, that'd be so quite unlikely. But well, thank you for joining us at the Bates Motel. And next time we'll see you in New York City. But no, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for some grimy sort of action in New York City with sweaty Joe Spinell.
And loud cars.
And loud cars, yes. Okay.
Yeah, it's maximum overdrive over here.
I guess that's from recording later, isn't it, in the day? You probably
Yeah, because normally it's like early in the morning. I didn't have to work today, so.
Yeah, so anyway. Okay, all right. Well, thanks for listening, and say goodbye to the good people.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.